Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're cutting through all the noise around mental resilience, especially at work, and we want to hand you something, well, something actionable.
Something like armor, really, not just another list of self-care tips.
Exactly. We've gone through a whole stack of sources on leadership and burnout, and we've found this one really fascinating intersection.
Ancient philosophy and modern office stress.
Right. And the main source we're diving into today is titled The Stoic Leader's Inner Citadel, Leading in a Toxic Company Culture.
It's a great title, isn't it? And what hooks you right away is the core idea. I mean, it's not talking about gentle management techniques.
Not at all.
It makes this really bold, almost jarring claim. The source basically asks, how can you use Marcus Aurelius's wartime tactics to survive a hostile corporate environment?
Which is just an incredible contrast to think about.
It is. I mean, Marcus Aurelius wasn't just some philosopher in an ivory tower. He was a Roman emperor on the battlefield for years, managing this massive crisis.
A literal war.
A literal war. So when we try to translate his mental strategies to a toxic workplace, where the battle is, psychological, we're looking for these high-efficiency shortcuts to building mental strength. That's the real goal here. Fortifying your mind.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I think we have to start with that core defensive idea the source brings up, the inner citadel. When you hear that word, citadel, you immediately think of a fortress, right? A stronghold built to withstand a siege.
The last refuge.
The last refuge, exactly. And in the context of a toxic company culture, that image is, well, it's everything. It tells you right away that the main strategy here isn't trying to change the outside world.
Which is often impossible.
Right. It's about building an impenetrable defense inside your own head.
And that is the breakthrough concept from the Stoics.
Yeah.
They understood that the most damaging attacks don't come from the events themselves. The bad boss, the nasty email chain.
A surprise layoff.
Right. The real damage comes from our internal judgment of those events, the story we tell ourselves about them.
So the inner citadel is that space where the chaos just can't touch you.
It's a self-contained mental space. The goal is to build this wall between the toxic inputs from the outside and your outputs, your reactions, your decisions. If you're feeling constantly drained at work, it's probably because you've let the enemy, so to speak.
The noise.
The noise and the actions of others occupy your internal processing power. The citadel is that boundary line. It's the framework for realizing what you actually control. And according to the Stoics, that's only your own mind. That's the foundation.
I love that shift. It immediately changes the whole story from I'm a victim of this place to I'm the general in charge of protecting my own resources.
Yeah.
But, okay, having a fortress is one thing. You still need an action plan.
Yeah.
So how do we move from that defensive structure into strategy? The source says we should use Marcus Aurelius's wartime tactics.
And that's the part that sounds so extreme, but it makes perfect sense when you dig in.
It's a remarkable parallel, though. You're taking battlefield tactics from the Marcomannic Wars and applying them to, hostile office politics.
But it's not about escalating the conflict. It's about strategic survival.
And leadership, right. So what are these mental maneuvers? What does the source say we can actually pull from a battlefield and use in an HR-compliant but still, cutthroat environment?
Well, think about what defined Aurelius's challenges. It was constant pressure, dwindling resources, total uncertainty.
Sounds like a few jobs I've had.
Exactly. It's a perfect description of a toxic culture. So the tactics are mental ones, designed to keep you functioning at your best under that kind of duress.
Okay, so what's the first one?
The first tactic is strategic vigilance.
Strategic vigilance.
On the frontier, a general has to see reality for what it is. No filter of hope, no filter of fear or panic, just the cold, hard facts.
So in the corporate world, that means what?
Right.
Figuring out what's a real threat versus what's just drama.
Precisely. It's about ruthlessly discerning genuine risk from organizational noise.
But how do you do that? I mean, if you're in one of these environments, you're just bombarded all day. Your job is to respond to everything. How do you separate the signal from the noise?
It's about being deliberate. So for example, think about that classic urgent email that lands in your inbox at 6 p.m.
Oh, I know this one.
Demanding something by 9 a.m. tomorrow, and then the next morning, it's completely forgotten or walked back.
Happens all the time.
A non-vigilant mind panics. You work late, you sacrifice your energy. A vigilant mind recognizes, wait a minute, the sender probably just has poor planning skills. This deadline isn't actually life or death.
So you see that the energy drain doesn't match the actual threat.
Exactly. The real threat might be the quiet little policy change that nobody's talking about, the one that completely undermines your project. That's where you focus your resources. Vigilance is a disciplined assessment of reality over narrative.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second tactic?
The second one is maintaining discipline under pressure. Think about a Roman legion. If they falter, it's usually because the officers or the soldiers lost their composure. That leads to chaos, costly mistakes.
But hold on a second. In a hostile corporate culture, aren't we kind of told to just swallow our frustration? To be professional, if discipline just means bottling it all up, won't that lead to burnout anyway?
That's a really important distinction. This isn't about repression. It's about strategic deployment of your emotions.
A strategic deployment.
Repression is just stuffing it down. Discipline is choosing the right time, the right place, and the exact right words to set a boundary or make a critique. The toxic culture feeds on reactive behavior.
The angry, reply-all email, the outburst in a meeting.
Yes. Discipline is the pause. It's the ability to feel that rage or frustration, but then consciously decide, you know what? This meeting, this email chain, this is not the efficient place to spend that emotional energy.
Yeah.
You regulate your response to align with your long-term goals, not the short-term satisfaction of venting.
So you're refusing to play their chaos game.
You are. And when you do that, you immediately stand out. If everyone else is freaking out over some new mandate, and you're the person who delivers a calm, reasoned, accurate response, you become invaluable. Your discipline becomes a form of leadership, even if you don't have the title.
Which leads us to the third tactic, I'm guessing.
It does. And this is maybe the most critical one for survival. Ruthless prioritization.
Ruthless. I like.
When resources are scarce, and your mental energy is your most precious resource. Aurelius was adamant that you focus only on what you can change. You discard all energy spent worrying about what you can't.
Okay, but this sounds incredibly difficult in practice. Chaos creates the illusion that everything is a top priority. If your own leadership is constantly changing their minds, how do you even start to prioritize when the chaos is coming from above you?
You go back to that ancient concept of the indifferent things. You focus your time on what you value, what aligns with your actual mission.
So you protect your time for deep work.
You protect your time. Even if it means ruthlessly, as the source says, deprioritizing the low-value, high-drama tasks that other people are screaming about.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you have a colleague who just has a terrible attitude and is constantly creating these minor crises. Ruthless prioritization means you accept that you cannot fix their personality.
Right.
So you spend zero mental energy trying to change them. Instead, all of that energy goes toward hitting your own project deadline. Your priority is your output, your conduct, not fixing the dysfunction around you that's way beyond your control.
So these three things, vigilance, discipline, and prioritization, they're really about self-preservation. They stop you from getting dragged down into the toxicity.
They're about being the calm eye of the storm.
But let's go back to the title of the source. It promises not just survival, but becoming the stoic leader. So it's not just about ducking for cover. These tactics have to somehow let you have influence, right? Even in a broken system.
And this is where the defense mechanism turns into a leadership tool. Think about it. In a dysfunctional, chaotic system, what's the most valuable currency?
Stability.
Yeah.
Clarity.
Exactly. Clarity, stability, predictability. A toxic culture is defined by the opposite of that. It's all emotional volatility, blurred lines, reactive decisions.
So when you operate from your inner citadel,
using these wartime tactics, you become the fixed point in that chaos. You're the one person who is consistently showing emotional discipline and ruthless focus. You don't fight the system on its own crazy terms. Instead, you lead by setting a higher standard.
then people notice that.
People gravitate toward the person who stays calm and rational when the building feels like it's on fire. That stability becomes the highest form of influence you can have in a system like that.
So if we boil this all down for you, the listener, right now, we've really distilled this into two big intersecting ideas you can use immediately.
Right. First, you have to establish that mental inner citadel. That's your foundation, your non-negotiable mental boundary. You have to decide today what external chaos you will no longer let occupy your mind.
And then second,
You use the wartime tactics we talked about. That strategic vigilance, the discipline, the ruthless prioritization. Those are your daily tools for defending your resources and making sure you get your critical work done no matter what's going on around you.
So what this deep dive really gives you is a powerful framework. The main takeaway from the source is that dealing with a hostile culture is less about trying to fix an unfixable system.
And infinitely more about strategically fortifying your internal one.
Your time and energy are finite. And the Stoics, it turns out, gave us a blueprint for defending them that's thousands of years old.
And it still works.
It does. And I want to leave you with a final thought on that. Just think about the intensity of that idea for a second. If leading in a so-called hostile corporate environment today requires philosophy from an emperor who was managing a literal multi-year war.
What does that say about modern professional life?
Exactly. What does that tell you about the sheer emotional and psychological intensity we're all dealing with? It kind of suggests the stakes for our mental health are maybe a bit higher than we usually admit.
It definitely puts the Monday morning meeting into a different perspective, doesn't it? So we'd encourage you to think about where your energy is leaking this week. Where has the toxic environment managed to breach your defenses?
Find that weak spot.
Find that spot and then just choose to deploy one of these wartime tactics. Maybe it's ruthless prioritization on a drama-filled project. Or maybe it's just exercising that unflappable discipline instead of sending a reactive email. Just do one thing to strengthen your inner citadel.
Go fortify your fortress. We'll see you on the next deep dive.